There's an old adage in the world of storytelling that goes like this. The king dies is an event. The king dies and then the queen mourns is plot. But what about if the queen could stop that from happening? What about if the queen could turn back time before any of that could take place? What about if the queen had to reset multiple times before being able to overcome that fate, that destiny, that trail? What would that be? Would that be a Majora? Would that be marvelous? Or would that be a mistake? Because if there's one thing that this game has taught us, it's that you will never have enough resets to be able to overcome all of the mistakes that you could possibly make. One day, no matter how many resets you have, you'll have to come face to face with the things that you did not want to come across with. That, ladies and gentlemen, is The Legend of Heroes: Trails Through Daybreak 2. Review code provided by NISAmerica. Much love to the good people over there for the trust. Truly appreciate them from the bottom of my heart. And thank you so much. The Legend of Heroes: Trails Through Daybreak 2 is not only the universal language. Y'all know how we do around here. It is goat, raw, fire, and peak. And let me tell you something. This game is not only a direct sequel to Trails Through Daybreak 1, which was already a masterclass in and of itself, but this game is also a companion piece to Trails into Reverie. If Trails into Reverie goes into so many of the beautiful themes that make this series special and tells it in a very unique way specific to that game and what it's trying to say, Daybreak 2 takes the Trails in the Sky the Third type of approach, where rather than advancing the story through the means of direct plot progression, it's advancing the story through us getting into the psyche and into the mentals of each and every member of the Calvard cast. And if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what to say about that, because we're all different. We're all different in the ways that we experience our stories and in the lenses that we experience our stories. But what I can tell you is that as someone who experiences a lot of long form stories, I can't compare it to any other JRPG because we're still early on that front. You know what I'm saying? I haven't experienced as many JRPGs as I have things in other mediums. But from the long form stories that I've experienced, this is something that takes place in all of the very greatest. All of the best long form stories drop their bangers, and then they drop a game, an arc, an episode, where the creator just wants to explore a theme that really means something to them because they know that this is also going to resonate with someone out there. And they're going to have the freedom to be able to say that because of the success that they just had. And coming off of Falcom's greatest success in Cold Steel 3, Cold Steel 4, and Reverie, we have now taken a Daybreak 1 and a Daybreak 2, which allow us to take a step back, specifically with this game, and view it through the lens of theater, view it through the lens of performance. If any of you out there are fans of Final Fantasy IX, this game reminds me so much of what that game was trying to say about theater, performance, memory, and above all that, the roles that people believe they have been thrusted into. And that by itself raises this game to like, holy sweet mother of flagnards. I really dig this. I dig it a lot. If you're just here for a surface level overview of music, story, character, all of that stuff, I can't provide that for you. I can tell you that the gameplay is flippin' awesome, because the gameplay has never been better. For what your boy wants in a Trails game, this right here, woo, the peak so far. The peak so far, man. I love the combat in The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak 2. It is a lot of fun, and you will have many different opportunities to be able to explore the gameplay with like the Merhin Garden and things of that nature. A lot of opportunities to go out and play and explore the combat, whether it be from the turn-based standpoint or from the action-based. It doesn't matter. You will be able to see the full brunt of what makes the combat system in this game so awesome. You want me to talk about character? Son, this game has Van Arkwright in it. Are you kidding me? This game has Shizuna Rem Mitsurugi. Do I need to say anything else? Do I need to say anything else from a character standpoint? Yo, man, infinity out of 10s across the board. When you have Van Arkwright as your protagonist, can you miss? No. You know, like Steph Curry out there. And not just any Steph Curry. Olympic gold medal winning Steph Curry. That is Van Arkwright. That is the ASO. The Arkwright Solutions Office. All bias. All bias, baby, but that's my familia. That's my familia. And so, if you're here for that, if you're here for story, we can talk about story. We can talk about story. We can talk about story. We can talk about thematic elements that make that story so wonderful and special to me. We can talk about that. But the one last thing that I gotta discuss, because it is one of the things that makes Trails so incredibly popular, is its music. And this game, when we get to Kai no Kiseki, you'll see that they have gone 3 for 3 in regards to the calibered overall way that we look at the music, right? From the main menu all the way down to its final boss theme. A lot of bangers. A lot of bangers. And so, hopefully when Kai no Kiseki gets localized, we can discuss how wonderful of back-to-back-to-back bangers it has been for the Calibered Saga. But going back into what we want to say here with this game, I think I should preface everything I want to say with the fact that I cannot look at this game through any lens that is not filled with a lot of rose-tinted bias. Not only because I love Trails as much as I do, I'm sure everybody watching this video loves Trails as much as I do. We all have different ways of expressing, of course, that love and appreciation. But when this game released, the circumstances surrounding it just made it to where it would always be solidified as an extremely special experience to me. The day this game came out, I was able to sink a few hours into it. And as the weeks came about, I was able to put less and less time before I had to stop completely, because it was a very hectic time period with the work schedule at that point in time. And it took me around 6 to 8 months before I could finally get back to it. And it's just so insane the way that things work out sometimes. Because the core message of this game being about, you know, bonds that transcend space and time, bonds that transcend specifically time, memories that can transcend that as well. But more importantly, having to come face to face with the mistakes and things that you've been avoiding for a prolonged period of time. That's how I got myself in the situation to be able to play this game again. because me avoiding rest, me avoiding all the signs that my body was telling me to slow down, led me to being bedridden for a couple of weeks in the summer of, I believe that was 2023. And it was bad, man. It was bad, dude. Because I already felt like I was behind on so many things. And then that happens, and I had to put a stop to everything. I had to put a stop to everything. The YouTube channel, of course, my job, but also from a school standpoint. I was also going to school at the time as well. So everything, I didn't know what to do. Like I said, I already felt like I was behind. And then you put a stop to it. So obviously, being unable to move from the bed. The last time something like this happened in regards to me being bedridden, I got through it by playing Final Fantasy VI, which is an all-time favorite of mine, and that's a story to tell for another day. But I was like, you know what? This will give me an opportunity to finish Trails. And that'll also get my mind off of all these emotions and feelings that I'm going through. But it was just experiencing something at the right time for that message, that core message to get across at the perfect time. Where I was able to see a video game completely focused on that core idea of being unable to run away from what is about to happen to you. You can have as many resets as you'd like. But if you don't ask for help, if you try to go through it alone, you're gonna get smacked. And you're gonna get yourself put on your behind. Or even worse than that, as was explored throughout multiple different instances in this game. And that was a very valuable message. An extremely valuable message. I think that's something that we can all relate to. Attempting to do something, attempting to do multiple things by yourself. Obviously because you don't want to bother anyone else, but also because you find it as something within you, within me, to be like, no, I have to do this. This is something, like if my pride is on the line, I got to do something about it. And ensure that these things work because it's all going to be on me. And the beauty of Daybreak 2. And the beauty of Trails in general, because it's something that was also explored in Zero and Azure, but not to this extent. Because obviously within there, it led to one of the greatest moments, I would say, in video game history at the end of Azure, where you find out like the truth and what led you to that point. This game, of course, is not taking that approach by leading into a humongous moment like that, but it is exploring what something like that would look like on both a minor scale and on a larger scale, in regards to how it impacts the characters directly. And so, when you bring something like that into the forefront, having to rely on other individuals, and I'm looking at this through the lens of a One Piece. That is the bread and butter of everything I look through. Because I am the One Piece guy, so I gotta look at everything through the One Piece lens. When Luffy in Arlong Park says, I can't navigate, I can't lie, I can't cook, I can't hold the sword, but what I can do is beat you. The ultimate, I have a role that I can do, that no one else can do. And I leave everyone else to do what they can do because no one else can do it better than them. And together, we're going to go up and like Swimmer, one of the core messages and themes of One Piece. We see explored throughout the course of this game. And I find it to be so incredibly and magically beautiful. Specifically with the context of what's to come. Obviously, another reason why I'm able to look at this game through any other lens besides rose tinted is because the game that follows is one of my favorite games. The one that hasn't been localized yet. And so that game elevates literally everything that came before it. I mean, everything. I'm talking everything gets elevated by the next game in the Trail series. And so it just, obviously what comes before is also going to be elevated by the material that's in the next game. And so, because of all of that, it led this experience of going through and playing through the game with its English localization to be a very, very unique experience. Because even though I'd obviously experienced the game already, unlike Daybreak 1, in Daybreak 1's case, obviously I was like, man, I can't wait to play this game just to see how the characters are going to sound like, right? That was my first opportunity to be able to hear these characters in the English dub, which, by the way, is still fantastic for this game. But it was my first opportunity to be able to hear that. So that by itself was like the main central focal point for me, because I already know the game was peak. I just couldn't wait to hear how they would execute certain lines, how certain lines would be different in English, and things like that. And it ended up being incredible. But with this game, what I wanted to see was how would my experience differ now that I wasn't bedridden, now that I wasn't in the same situation where I was at that point in time. Because obviously, I'm a big rewatch and replay guy. You know, I think that every single rewatch and replay has its own value based on where you are and the lens which you could view it with. I had this with Attack on Titan last year, where I rewatched Attack on Titan after having experienced multiple different things within that year that allowed me to see it through a different lens. And because of that Attack on Titan rewatch is hitting on a completely different level. I still haven't finished it, but it's hitting on a completely different level. And even now with Daybreak 2, I'm currently reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And even going from Gardens of the Moon to Dead House Gates, and seeing how we have the next book present itself, obviously, as a sequel. But it definitely takes that Crossbell to Erebonia-esque way of looking at a sequel, right? Where you're seeing things at the same time from a different POV, while also seeing things in a completely different place much later, right? So it reminded me a lot of Trails in that regard, and obviously I was viewing it through the lens in which I view Trails in, because that's how I compare it to things internally. But while playing through this game again, I was able to take the last 2 years of other experiences and add it into what has already been something that's extremely special to me, which is a game, once again, focused on time, memory, and mistakes. And so, obviously, it's going to be very difficult to talk about this game without getting into heavy spoilers, but I'm going to try to do my hardest. And then at the end of this video, I want to talk about, at the very least, the final scene in this game and how it relates to the game that follows, and why it was the scene I was looking forward to seeing the most in the English version. Similar to how we do with One Piece, where, you know, we'll read it in one translation, then when the Viz comes out, we'll see how it compares, so that we can get a greater look at what the author was trying to say. So let's talk about time and memory to start this off, because that is at the core of this game. And it is not only the central core mechanic, similar to something like Majora's Mask. If you're a fan of Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, think of Daybreak 1 being Ocarina of Time, and this game being Majora's Mask. Meaning, they take the exact same thing that you're used to seeing, and also the locations that you're used to seeing, and they turn it on its head with a brand new gameplay mechanic, with the turning back time and redoing events that you've already gone through, not in the first game, but in this game. But you're seeing everything that you saw in the first game, and so it has that Majora's Mask-esque effect, literally, with the time mechanic, even though it's not as in-depth. You know, Majora's Mask is a masterpiece in its own regard in regards to that. But it is very similar in that way, where Ocarina of Time, you could show that to anyone and they could see why it's a masterpiece. Majora's Mask, it takes a specific type of approach and look and mindset into what makes that game as special as it does. And for me, what has always made Majora's Mask as special as it is that specialization on time and memory, and how you explore that through the side quests, how you explore that through the game mechanics, and also how you explore that through the characters that are within the world of Hyrule, and specifically within Clocktown in that beginning section. But in this game, time and memory has always been such a sensitive thing for me. It's one of the things that gets me the most emotional. I always think back to the first time I saw it execute, or the first time I remember seeing it executed to a point where it made me tear up, or like someone was disappearing and they would forget them, which was the Kingdom Hearts 358 and a half days that I played at a very young age. And that forever solidified my love for stories that touch upon memory and or forgetting something that you've experienced with someone else, and the thing more than likely posing the question of, were the bonds and experience that you had with this person, are they going to be able to transcend the logic of you forgetting this person, and or will those bonds and experiences that you had with someone in another time period allow you to be able to get through what you're getting through right now, even if at points you don't remember it. That type of stuff is super interesting to me from a storytelling standpoint. When we get into it from a real life standpoint, I'm sure we've all had deja vu. And we're like, what in the sweet mother of Flagnars is going on here? Right? You know what I'm saying? And so when you add something to that, and you do it in the way that most stories do, but in this particular case with the way that Daybreak 2 does it, it definitely does add some sort of a really cool element to something that we all experience, which is that deja vu effect. So when you tap into reality like that, when you tap into a sensitive thing for me in regards to time and memory, that's a recipe for greatness. But I think what this game does such a great job of, once again, is exploring it through multiple different facets. I know all of you have heard, and maybe you feel this way about a certain thing, that you've heard the popular phrase, I wish I could erase my memory to experience blank again. I'm sure you've said it, I'm sure you've read it, and I'm sure you more likely feel that way about maybe even trails. That is one thing that I can never, ever say, because memory is too important to me. I'm just going to compare this in regards to One Piece as an example. The memories, experiences, time spent, and more importantly above all else, the bonds that I've made thanks to One Piece make it to where I don't want to erase my memory of that particular journey to be able to experience it again. Because those memories of that first time experience and everything that's followed are way too valuable to me. Same thing with trails. Same thing with a lot of my favorites. And I'm just talking about from a storytelling standpoint, let alone in real life, right? But from a storytelling standpoint, so many of those things have been integral to who I am as a person. If you were to take that away, how would that change things? How would you, having not experienced something, how would that change things? And that's something that this game explores in multiple different ways. Something extremely powerful that tears away at my soul is the thought of going through something impactful and then not remembering it. Trails Through Daybreak 2 presents multiple different scenarios where characters go through some of the highlights of their character arcs within Daybreak 1 and Daybreak 2, and time resets. Do you know how tragic, how emotional that is? Obviously, that can be used as a detriment against this game, to where it can make it feel like the characters, due to those things being reset, that those moments never even happened. But that's the point of the tragedy to me, and what makes it feel so emotional. Because of my connection to the memories and the experiences. when you rip those things away, especially after you've gone through something so much, or you've gone through something so incredibly triumphant, and or a moment that really solidifies you as a person, as a character, you get that ripped away from you, and you gotta start over again, and no one remembers? Come on, dude. That is extremely, extremely tragic, man. And it's why I can't say those lines, right? Of like, I don't want to go back and experience something for the first time as if I, never did. No, that's not something I ever want to do. And like I said, I don't blame anyone else for saying that and or feeling that way. That's just a personal thing for me and what I value in those memories and those experiences. And this game throws that in all different types of directions with so many members of its main cast, where they will have extremely incredible moments and they just get ripped away. And I'm sitting like, no, are they gonna have that again? And some have moments that surpass it, some don't have those moments again. And it's why, like I said, why I understand the frustration with this game. Because its main central core message goes around with those very same elements. And so it's like, I understand, man. I get it. But because of my personal connection to it, it's like, man, I can't help but love the idea of them taking a game to explore a concept like this, especially with how integral time, and in particular how y'all know with like Zero and Owl, or even like Reverie, have explored this other quote-unquote timeline, or this other reality that existed within the Trailsverse, right? And how we continue to see that through within our Trails games, and especially within this game, and seeing how with those continuous resets, it gives you another opportunity to be able to potentially actually get things done this time. But the consequences of that are maybe a progression between you and another character are gone. A really powerful moment between you and another individual is wiped away. But you have another opportunity at reality. And this brings us to the end of this game. What I'm trying to say with this entire video, I can't say without talking about the end of this game. And so, if you're interested with returning back to this after you finished the game, then please, by all means, exit the video and come back after you finish Trails Through Daybreak 2. Because I want to talk about the end of this game, in particular, literally, like the final scenes of this game, because of how important they are, not only just with context of the game that follows, but just within this game and how it wraps everything up beautifully from a thematic standpoint. And so once again, if you have not finished The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak 2, do not watch this section. I don't want to ruin the experience for you. And so 3, 2, 1, spoiler mode, spoiler territory. So this game, a lot of the final portions of this game is all leading to the festival that is taking place within the RMS school. You're seeing the preparations for it. It reminded me, obviously, of Cold Steel 1, which, by the way, one of my favorite sections in this game, now that we're talking about spoilers, is whenever you're walking around the school, both times. But specifically whenever you first go through the school and you're with Nadia and Swin and you're just exploring, I was like, oh my god, this was like Cold Steel 5, dude. And obviously because of my connection to those games, I was like, bro, this just feels right at home, you know what I'm saying? So I really enjoyed that section, and it was obviously very, very, very important to me. And you got Toa there, and it's like, come on, it's Cold Steel 5, dude. Cold Steel 4.5 maybe, or maybe 4.8 if we want to take the Kingdom Hearts road. But that's what it felt like. But anyways, the entire game is leading towards that grand festival is going to be taking place. And in the midst of that is going to be a performance, right? Similar to like that of a Cold Steel 1, where you get to see like the performances all leading to with the classes. But in this particular game, what truly sets it apart is the focus on how we've been seeing Nina and Judith from Daybreak 1 to Daybreak 2, how movies have been seen throughout the two games, and this brand new technological revolution in regards to even introducing cinema in the first place. But then you bring in the art of live performance into this. And obviously, right before that, you get the scene with Nina, which by itself is, to me, one of the all-time scenes in Trail's history. But when you lead into this final section, you get a really beautiful sequence with a majority of the Trail's cast all together within that performance at the school. And for me, as someone who really values live performance as an art form, it was an extremely powerful message because of what follows. Agnes, within the final section of Trails Through Daybreak 2, says, let me see if I can pull up the full line here, because it's just extremely powerful stuff to me. So we're going to go through this entire section here. You know, Dingo may have had a point about humans being fragile and weak. I can't deny his words rang true. But there are times when we have to move forward, even if it means making a misstep or a stumble along the way. I'd go so far as to say that making mistakes is all a part of what it means to be human. That line encapsulates everything that this game is trying to say. The characters have made and continue to make so many different mistakes. The mistakes and the guilt felt by the main party after Krail Village is what led to the final confrontation between Van and Dingo at the end of this game. Coming face to face with your literal failures, with the thing that you did not want to confront, with the mistakes that you've made along the way. The way that Nadia and Swin had to also overcome that with Ace. The way that even Ren, back in Intermission, had to face that with the Cross situation in Paradise. There are so many different examples of the characters having to come face to face with their past, but also with the things that they have been trying to not confront. Obviously, there are a lot of things out of their control that led into those situations, that led into what happened in Krail Village, that obviously what led into Paradise, and with Nadia and Swin as well, with the Emperor and Gardens. But the things that followed that, the life that they lived after those events, they still have to deal with the consequences of those actions. And so what I love so much about that is no amount of resets can cause those trails to go in different directions. They've got to go face to face with the things that they have to confront. And all those things, all those mistakes are a part of who make them, are a part of what makes these characters them. And I find that so immensely, unbelievably beautiful, man. Unbelievably beautiful. It's why I think it is the best possible message to have in a game that is focused on its biggest sequence being a performance art. What is performance art? You going in there trying your hardest not to make a mistake. Because it's live performance. You can go according to the script. You can go with what's in your head, but it's not going to go according to plan. And so when it does not go completely according to plan, what are you going to do about it? That is the beauty of performance art. That is the rawness, the purity of that art form. You can't go back and revise. You can't go back and edit. What's done there is done. And it can lead into a catastrophic disaster, but it can also lead into something that the individuals involved will never forget. Both the people who are in the performance itself and the audience who's experiencing it. And the best example that could ever have for this is professional wrestling. and the way that they go in there with a plan and obviously with something in mind and what is going to take place. But the performance art of it all, the audience aspect of it all is going to end up changing it no matter what it is that they want to do. And so with that being said, when you accompany something that an art form that is based on not being able to make mistakes and not being able to go in and just do whatever you'd like. You have to stick to your role. You have to act out this part of your play. For the main story to be focused on all of that, their roles within this game, their roles within this arc, all being tested at the forefront, their roles with each other, how that changes based on the memories and experiences that they have. And then you have this, that those mistakes that we make are part of what makes us human. The mistakes that we could possibly make within that live performance is a part of what makes us human. Also making it very pure, very one of one, where you go into one performance, see them carrying out a scene, another individual goes in on a different day to see that very same performance, and something's going to be different. Why? Because we're human. We can't create a one-to-one every single time, man. It's just not possible. Something's going to happen. Either your shoulder is going to be in a different place, your facial expression is going to be different, something's going to be different this time around, and we can't help that. It's just going to happen. Those mistakes are going to take place. And so in a game filled with time, memory, and how those experiences shape us, how those experiences make us who we are, but also while focusing on the mistakes that we make, that we also want to go back and fix, and we won't have the opportunity to go back and fix them because we have to come face to face with them. What more powerful of a message to have than a high school performance where the characters, having just come off of having to come face to face with their own failures, with their own mistakes, have to go in and see that, have to go in and perform in a way that none of them that went beyond their expectations, right? That went beyond the script that they had in mind. And it kept the audience involved. It kept the audience excited. Because that is a part of what makes it all beautiful, man. You can't predict life. It's not going to go according to the script. But what are you going to do when those mistakes happen? What are you going to do when things don't go according to plan? And that's what makes Daybreak 2 so special to me, man. Going alongside that, with the context here of obviously the next game, the final lines stated here between Vaughn and Anya's, man, it is insane. It is actually insane. Seeing all of this, like I said, through the lens of Kai no Kiseki, man. This replay was incredible. This entire experience just continues to be elevated the more I think about it. And the more I consider the risk at hand. Anytime you go away from your established formula in any long form story, it's always going to drive people away. Because it's just the nature of the beast, right? People go in here expecting one thing, and you're giving them something completely different. It's naturally going to cause some sort of either disappointment and or questioning of what exactly was the vision behind this process. And for a game franchise that is so focused on its sequel, always attempting to outdo its predecessor, when you think of Trails in the Sky SC, and the way that it built upon the foundation of everything the FC was going for, and paying off so many of the things that make that duology so special. Obviously it's a trilogy, but in particular for that story that was being told there, so immensely special. When you think about Zero and Azure, and the way that Azure pays off everything from Zero, right, and continue to elevate and push things in the direction people were expecting based on the context of SC. You think about Cold Steel 1 and Cold Steel 2 in an exact same type of way. evolving upon everything that was established on and Cold Steel 1 in order to tell the story as the complete package of those two games in CS2. And of course you have a CS3 and CS4, which is a little different because that's like the culmination of like 9 games coming together there. But still, I know quite a few people who played on the Switch just Cold Steel 3 and Cold Steel 4 as just that duology. And it goes to that very same thing, where you know the established formula for CS3 and you understand the established formula of how it's going to follow. And so for this game to take a Sky the Third and Reverie type of approach down to its route system, but not for the third game in a series or the fifth game, the Cold Steel and Azure saga, or the Crossbell and Erebonia saga, you know, culminating with Reverie. This game decided to do it after its first game. Because I know one of the popular things that was being said when Daybreak 1 finished was, oh my god, this is the best first game in the series, and it most certainly is. How are they going to follow this up? Especially with the way that we've been accustomed to understand the way the Trails formula works. Right, the first game, the setup game, and the payoff game most of the time ends up being higher up on the list, right? Because it's just the natural order of things. But how is Daybreak 2 going to compare to that? And what I love so much about this game is that they went away from that formula. And instead, obviously, Daybreak 1 goes in and tells its own self-contained story that could have been the Calvert Saga by itself, and it would have been peak. But they take this game to, instead of elevating everything from Daybreak 1 in regards to it being a constant upward climb that's going to pay off at the end of this game. No, they had a longer vision in mind. And they understood it's going to be a long story to tell. And so this game, and I say this once more with the context of the game that's about to follow, this game is like the perfect central point, the perfect middle of this long Calvert saga that I promise y'all, if you have not played Kai no Kiseki yet, the thematic exploration of everything that we've been talking about, not just in this video, but what this game is focused on in regards to the characters themselves and the multiple amount of character pieces that we got through the course of this entire narrative. When you get to Kai no Kiseki, you will understand the long-term vision that they had for this saga and why this game needed to be the way that it is. And so that in and of itself has elevated Daybreak 2 for me. But like I said, it's going through those other stories. It's having gone through the game again with a different type of lens, similar to how the characters in this game have had to go through the same events multiple times before eventually reaching some sort of conclusion. I truly believe Daybreak 2 is a game that you will have to experience multiple times with the context of the rest of the series, maybe even with the context of other stories, to be able to get the full scope and understanding of. Because I truly and honestly believe that we will not have the full scope, the full understanding of this game and its message and its core themes until we finish Trails. Just like I believe Sky the Third will be elevated until the end of this franchise. The same way I believe Trails into Reverie will be elevated until the end of this entire franchise. I throw Daybreak 2 into that as well, because similar to Reverie and Sky the Third, this is also a character piece that is focused on so many different individuals, as well as the core elements and themes that not just make this game so special, but make the entire Trails series so special. And so when we reach the end game, and we look back on the entire series and what it was truly trying to say, similar to how at the end of Cold Steel 4, when To the Future plays, and that in and of itself, what you feel when To the Future plays at the end of that game, encapsulates the beauty of this entire franchise. I honestly believe that when we get to the final Trails game, and we look back on this entire journey, one of the games is going to be elevated because of this entire overall picture, this entire painting of Trails being completed, is going to end up being this game. Because viewing it through as many different lenses as possible is undoubtedly what will allow this game to stand the test of time. Listen, man. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of this review. This is the end of whatever this thing is going to be, a review, a discussion of. I don't know what this is. A ramble. I don't know what this is. But if you can take just one thing away from this video, it's that I absolutely adore this game. And I am not ready. Neither are you, nor are the individuals who've already experienced this greatness. None of us are ready for the next Trails game. I don't care what it's called. When Kai no Kiseki gets localized, I saw the temporary title they have on the new. You know how sometimes like the original one for Kuro was Trails Beyond the Dawn, I believe, something like that. This one is Beyond the World. Holy flag noise! What a title! Whatever they end up calling Kai no Kiseki. I promise y'all, bro. There has been nothing more rent-free since I played that game than that game. Nothing. And everything I experienced has been elevated by it. And so when the time comes and that game releases, by all means, try to avoid spoilers for that game, man. Just try, because I'm telling you, when the time comes and you go into that game with the context of Daybreak 1 and Daybreak 2, as well as those who have gone through the entire journey from Sky FC until now, the stuff you are going to experience within The Legend of Heroes Kai no Kiseki. And so that's where we're going to leave this today. Daybreak 2. Absolutely adore the game. And it got elevated even higher by what's to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not played Trails and you watch this video because you used to watch me talk about stuff that, and ramble about stuff that maybe you have not experienced, do yourself a favor and play the Trails greatness. I know I've talked about it in all the One Piece streams and things of that nature, but it truly is a very special franchise to me. And if you love your long-running stories, in particular the long-running stories that focus on those big, impactful moments, similar to that of the coming from the anime world, the way that like the Dragon Balls or the One Pieces, the Bleaches, or the Narutos would, then you most certainly would appreciate the Trails greatness. Or even if you're coming from the world of novels, the more that I read the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, I can see so much of Trails within that as well, because this series just has it understands long-form storytelling. And if you like long-form storytelling in any capacity, I think you will find value within the Trails series, regardless of the entries that end up resonating with you. I would highly recommend checking it out because it just is that special of a franchise. Daybreak 2, absolute greatness. And I'm just grateful that I got to experience this game when I needed it most. And what a special experience it was, both the first time and the second time. So I will see y'all. Thank you so much for being patient with me. I blame Mural Piece for this video being out so late. But y'all have a great day. Ban Arcride. Shizuna Ren Mitsurugi in this game. So that's automatic, go raw fire and peak, maybe, you know what I'm saying? Automatic! Automatic.